Hello again. Some of you may know that I made a video yesterday where I was pretty incensed about a Guardian report regarding an upcoming BBC interview with Paul McCartney, and it has to do with the breakup and Paul saying that John Lennon instigated the breakup. He was the first one who wanted out and said so, and etc., etc. And I made a video about it, and I was pretty passionate about it. And one of the things when you make a video like that, it encourages commentary, opinion, different points of view, and I think that's great. I think one of the things we can do here when we make YouTube videos is come together and discuss our feelings, pro and con, agree or disagree, whatever. But the reason I'm making this video, it's now a day later, and I'm always a person who will listen to reason when I feel it's warranted. And if somebody makes good points, somebody makes good comments, if anybody ever causes me to rethink a prior stance, I have no problem changing my mind, changing my view, learning from other people. And that's what I'm here to say. Now, before I go on with this, I'm referring to the video that I made. For those who don't know, the video just before this one, if you want to go back and check it out. This is a kind of semi-retraction, not a complete retraction, but some people are going to think, oh, well, this guy just caved under the pressure, and that's not me, folks. Believe me, those who know me really well know. I'm going to give my opinion. I'm going to stand by it if I still believe in it. But if I have reason to change my perception, change my opinion, I will do that. That's what I'm here to do. A lot of people made good comments. A lot of people made good points. Friends of mine, in the Beatle circle, as well as people that made very intelligent and very poignant, well thought out comments in the last video. And it caused me to consider a few things. First and foremost, well, I've said this from the beginning. We all know that John Lennon was the one who officially, really, I guess, because he was first, broke up the Beatles. What I mean by that is, I think it was September 20th of 1969, during a meeting. He let it spill out. He said, look, he goes, I'm leaving the group, and he kind of shocked everybody. And Alan Klein had asked him to keep it private, keep it private and don't say anything, at least until the current Beatle contract is negotiated. They had something they had to go through, and they all had to sign. And Alan Klein was trying, even though he turned out not to be very good for the Beatles. He was at least trying to get them some more money and a better deal with royalties and things like that. Anyway, but John, in his usual self, couldn't help blurting out to Paul. Well, Paul suggested maybe playing some little gigs or getting back to being a little band again. John couldn't handle it. He just blurted out in that meeting of September 20th, 69. He just said, I think you're daft. And he says, I'm leaving the group, he said to him. So that's really how the Beatles ended. We all know that. I knew that. I say that. But here's my biggest, I don't know what you'd call it, realization that has happened. I always thought, and this is coming from a guy who's a big Beatles fan who knows their history. I always thought that on April the 10th, I think it was, Paul officially quit the Beatles officially. And really, as has been pointed out to me, and it's given me pause to think about it, Paul never really, if you want to nitpick, he never technically said, the Beatles, I quit. I quit the Beatles, I'm done with the Beatles. I dissolved the Beatles. No, nothing like that. I guess what happened was I went with that newspaper headline from April of 1970. There's that infamous headline where it says, Paul quits the Beatles, or Paul is quitting the Beatles. And it was that headline that stuck with me, I guess, the last 50 years or so. And I always thought, well, Paul quit. Paul quit. He's the guy. Even though John said it privately, Paul's the one who made it official, I thought. Well, I'm here now to say that I'm rethinking that situation. A lot of people have made me reconsider. Because it is true that Paul, technically speaking, never said the Beatles are completely over in at that particular time. As I'm saying these words, though, I'm thinking that's not 100% true either, because in November of 1969, not quite 2 months later, there was a Life magazine article on the Paul is dead thing, and Paul spoke briefly to Life magazine, and he said, quote, this is 2 months later after John, in November of 69, and a few months before the April 70 newspaper headline, Paul said in the Life magazine, he said, quote, the Beatle thing is over, unquote. So technically, he did say the Beatle thing is over, but you can nitpick and you can argue and you can say, well, is the Beatle thing over from Paul's perspective in that Life magazine article, or is he saying, since he knows that John already, a couple of months earlier, said he's leaving, does he mean the Beatle thing is over, not of his doing, but John's doing? I know it gets a little technical, complicated here, a little involved, but when the McCartney album was released, Paul released his first real solo album, McCartney, in 1970. And there was that infamous kind of like cryptic, self-serving kind of interview where he kind of like interviewed himself, or more or less, or kind of answered questions for himself. And, things about, do you think the Beatles are going to continue, and, maybe not at this time, or you ever see things like that. It was very vague, and in that self-interview, Paul never said, I admit it, I think about it, Paul never said, oh yes, the Beatles thing is definitely over, I quit. He didn't say that. So, even though my mind, as I say these words, is harking back to the Life magazine article where he said the Beatle thing is over, I'll give him the respect in this case now. And what I'm getting at is, you think history, Beatles history, but you can always learn new things, new dates and things. I'm starting to realize, I think right now, I am now of the official opinion of myself that John Lennon really broke up the Beatles. September 20th of 69, he said, I'm leaving the group. And he did. He was leaving. And then he kept it quiet. And as has been pointed out to me, 6 or 7 months later, John had 6, maybe 7 months to say something. After the contract was signed, after the business litigation stuff was taken care of and it was okay to speak up, John just didn't bother to speak out. He could have promoted another album, Life, Peace in Toronto or something. He could have come out with a public statement saying, I, John Lennon, I'm publicly announcing to the world, newspaper headline, I am disbanding the Beatles. I'm done. He could have said that. He did not. So Paul McCartney, who was getting rather, tired of the subterfuge, tired of the lies, tired of the hiding, tired of all the baloney, going through, he finally said, well, I guess if nobody's going to say anything and John's not going to say anything, I'm just going to put out my solo album, and I'm going to put this kind of like, mock interview in here, kind of saying that it's kind of a break. It looks like, if you really analyze Paul's words in that interview with the McCartney album originally, it looks like he's saying it's a break. And my new feeling on this situation is that I'm kind of using an analogy. I'm going to compare it to a marriage that doesn't work. It's as if you have a marriage that doesn't work, so you decide you're going to separate. You're not together anymore. You separate. The Beatles separated. And even though they separated, they could still see other people, meaning they can put other people, meaning play with other musicians. They're playing with other musicians. They're making solo albums. But the Beatles itself is not officially legally dissolved. So it's almost like when a couple wants to get divorced. First they separate. And the Beatles separated from, say, I don't know, we'll just say 1969 or early 1970, if you will, till about 1974 or so, the mid-70s, where they finally signed the official dissolution papers, where they dissolved the Beatles as a group, as a partnership. That's the divorce papers. So first they had a separation from late 69, early 1970, where they could do other projects and see other people do other things with the reconciliation option open, till all the way when they signed the official divorce papers of 1974 or so. That's how I'm now looking at it. So I said this was kind of like a half retraction of my last video. I'm giving Paul that benefit now. When he says, it was John was the one who instigated the breakup, I will concede that. And I think, I think it's a good thing. I think the Beatles needed to break up, and I like the fact that John did it. But where I say a half retraction, the other half that I'm not really retracting is, while I respect Paul, and I now will take his side in that matter of it was John's baby, of breaking up the Beatles, I still think there's this petty thing with Paul that he does get too concerned of his legacy. There's no reason why Paul should be concerned of his legacy. We know that. I know that. You people out there know that. But Paul doesn't know that, I don't think. I think Paul is insecure. I think Paul is worried about how he's going to be remembered. He wants people to know everything that he did or didn't do. He doesn't want people thinking he did the wrong things or the bad things. And that's the only part I don't retract in my last video. I still stand by the fact that I think Paul can be kind of petty about things like that. That I think as he gets to be near the end of his life, I think he's starting to realize how he may be remembered, and he doesn't want to be remembered a certain way. So I think some of these things mean a little too much to him, and I think he wants to kind of just absolve himself as much as he can, especially because of the fact that the Let It Be album is being released this week, followed by Peter Jackson's wonderful, I hope, 6-hour documentary next month. Anyway, there are my changing thoughts on it. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for helping me think things through and arriving at my decision of how I feel about the situation. Talk to you soon.